recording this super late, so I'm really hoping this goes well, because if it doesn't, then I am screwed. I am once again on r/AskReddit because you guys liked it last time, so I thought I'd do it again. This time reading through the responses to what was your biggest "we need to leave now" moment. I used to really enjoy driving around at night, especially because around where I live there are a lot of country roads and they're fun to zip around. One evening after I'd been at a friend's house, I decided to drive to my church. In brackets about half an hour away from home, and back just listening to music. This route is one I've done most Sundays for 17 years, being driven and driving it for 4 years at this point. So even in the dark I felt fine to go 60 miles per hour, speed limit. I got maybe a quarter of the way there and my stomach started really twisting. I knew that if I kept going I'd regret it, but I shook it off. It wasn't that late and the weather was fine. I wasn't going to miss this driving opportunity. But as I got further, the feeling in my stomach got so much worse and I realised I had to turn around. Just before I reached the hill pass that's about halfway to the church, I pulled a U-turn and went home and stopped feeling so anxious and forgot about it. Next day I woke up and got in my car to go to church to find my usual route had been closed. Turned out that on the hill pass the road had crumbled away, leaving a sheer drop that would have been around a blind bend for me. The road issue had been called in by a driver going the opposite direction to me about 5 minutes after I pulled a U-turn and driven away. I definitely had been at the very least badly hurt if I kept going. It was early 2019 and I was with my girlfriend at the time walking through the woods near my house as we often did. We were having an intense argument over something stupid when I noticed something through the trees off the trail to where we were walking. It was a man wearing a dark top and blue jeans. People came in this woods all the time, but what was weird is this man wasn't on any trails. He was in the middle of the overgrowth. I told her to shut up. I know, bad idea, especially in an argument. And she just got madder at me. I told her again and told her to look in the direction I was looking. At first she didn't see what I was talking about, so I told her to look for blue since the man's jeans stood out the most. Then she saw him, a man walking through the overgrowth following us. I didn't know who this guy was, but he looked older. Still, I wasn't taking any chances, especially with my girlfriend there, so I told her, let's go, we have to leave, and we walked faster. The trouble was we were in the middle of nowhere and far from any exits, and to be honest, my girlfriend at the time wasn't exactly physically fit, so walking fast was hard for her. We walked as fast as she could and I kept looking behind us, and that old man was still following us in the overgrowth, obviously trying to remain hidden. We ended up leaving the woods and never going back there together. I've been back there many times since alone and I've had a few strange encounters with another person that looks kind of like the old man, but I can't say for sure that it's the same guy as he's always watching from afar. He never does anything besides follow from a distance, but I've seen him a total of 3 times. Spooky. I met this cute girl at a party, spent the whole night dancing and flirting, offered to drive her home and she agreed. We were making out in the car in front of her house while another car pulls up with their headlights beaming at us. I ask if that's a neighbour and if we were blocking their driveway. She replies, no, that's my husband. Husband's car door opened and I noped the fuck out of there. Dropped her straight back at the party and never saw her again. Her excuse was that they were separated and he shouldn't have a problem with it. I sure wasn't sticking around to find out. What the fuck? A friend and I were exploring an abandoned hospital, and the way it was set out was via a bunch of joined buildings. All the windows and doors were boarded up aside from one place where we could squeeze in past a loose board, and the layout meant that once we were in through there we had access to pretty much the entire main building. Obviously it was darker than dark in there, and we have to remember which wing we'd come in from. We had flashlights so it wasn't too bad, but then we got to this room where there was a lot of cool stuff left behind. Beds, filing cabinets, etc. And we wanted to take pictures, so we turned the flashlights off so we could use the flash on the camera. We did this for 10 minutes or so, only seeing the room in the bright flash from the camera. Everything was cool and then we slowly became aware of noises. Usually an abandoned building is pretty quiet apart from water dripping and wind doing weird things, but we could hear floors creaking, doors creaking, the occasional scrape of a crash of metal against the floor. Basically it sounded like someone blundering around in the dark. Now the layout means that in order to get back out where we came in, we have to walk back towards the noise. There's only one route. We're getting freaked out, so we start moving back through the rooms, stopping to listen all the while. Finally we get to the side hall that we came in from and we bolt to the door at the end, finally risking turning the flashlights on and making noise. It's the wrong fucking door. We stand there listening to the footsteps get closer. We're frozen, standing in the dark, totally cornered. If whoever or whatever is making that noise comes down this short hall, we're fucked. We wait and listen, holding our breaths. The scraping and shuffling approaches, slowly comes past and then fades. We wait a bit, then creep out of the hall and into the main building again. Carefully we move one hall over where we can see a slither of light from one loose board. We quietly make our way towards it. Then we hear an almighty scrape and bang behind us, as though someone tripped over one of the huge metal filing cabinets. I mean, it was loud. I yell time to go and we sprint for the door, and there are clear footsteps right behind us. We launch ourselves through the loose board and down the overgrown path before taking a quick look back. We can't see anything through the small gap, but we do not stick around to see if that changes. I used to drive for Lyft April 2018. I picked up a young couple from a bar about 1:30 AM. They were fairly chill and I figured it would be my last ride of the night. The dude asked me to stop at a corner store on the way to their destination so that he could get cigarettes. I didn't see any harm in waiting, so I stopped and had a nice chat with a young woman while he was in the store. It ended up being about 5 minutes since everyone was trying to get their pre-2 AM beer. When he came out, he asked me to take him to a location that was in the opposite direction of their destination, but was only about a mile away. He said he wanted to meet some friends real quick and grab some beer. Since I figured it would be my last ride of the night, I said fuck it, why not, and drove him there. Now I know the town we live in fairly well, but the direction we were coming from was no way I was used to going when I would go to this location. So when I turned onto the destination street, I missed the turn into a complex parking lot. I just came up to a complete stop since the roads were empty and asked them if they just wanted me to park on the street or pull into the complex. This is when the two of them started arguing, as he suddenly wanted to go in and hang out for a few minutes while she didn't want to go in at all. She just wanted him to do his thing and get out of there so they could go home. And then something hit my car. The sound is unmistakable to me, so I immediately started to look around to figure out what it was. Then I moved to the next thing on my mental checklist. If something didn't hit me, then what did I hit? But that didn't make any sense either, as I'd been in park and couldn't have hit anything. It's at this point that the young lady's attitude completely changed. She just kind of looked around and then said, "Can we just get out of here? It hurts and I want to go home." This was odd to me, as she'd been sitting in my car for about 10 minutes at this point. I hadn't said a word about any kind of pain. She followed this up with, "It hurts and I can't move." She put her hand to her back and pulled it out covered in blood. What the fuck? So the guy starts freaking out, thinking that something in my truck had exploded, but it was empty. As he reached over to tend to her, I noticed something white sticking out of the seat. This hadn't been there at the beginning of the night, so I asked him what it was. He pulled on it. It was a piece of filler fuzz from my seat. It came out of the hole that had been made in the seat because she had been shot. As soon as he grabbed that fuzz, we both had the same realization. He slammed his door shut and I drove him straight to the hospital, which was only a couple of miles away. That realization and the follow-up realization of, oh, someone could still shoot you while you're sitting here, was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever experienced. But that was the last one, and those stories were certainly different than what I'm used to reading on here. Please like, comment and subscribe. It helps me out a bunch and I really appreciate it. And if you want to see more videos on this subreddit or have another subreddit in mind, then let me know and I will try and do a video on that. But yeah, that's the end of this video, so I will see you whenever I next see you.